Welcome, everybody, to another edition of The Teams ahead of our round 22 clash against Richmond at the G on Saturday at 1:20 p.m. As always, a big shout out to our sponsors of this segment, Southside Pizza. As always, if you haven't had a slice by now, what are you doing? Go grab a slice and enjoy tonight's game of footy. It's going to be a good one. But before we talk about that, which we won't even bother talking about that, welcome Ollie and Woody back. Thanks for joining, as always, to our viewers as well. A little bit of a different feeling coming off another win, which is great, but there was certainly no rushing to watch the replay this week, and especially not the last quarter. Like I'm pretty sure many of us watched at least 5 times. I gotta say, I didn't watch the replay of this game. A little bit of an anticlimax, and I even had a few people comment that it was like, the week after winning a flag, that the boys were just a bit flat. So a little bit sad that I have to say that that win was like a flag, but it's been a while since I've been that excited. So I guess I'll get both of your takes on the weekend's game before we get stuck into the Richmond game. I've got the ins and outs there ready to go. But what did you sort of take away from our lackluster win against the Roos?
I mean, it kind of looked like we played one quarter of footy. I mean, we were kind of average in the others. Fourth quarter probably being worse. Third quarter was great. Sort of came back when they not came back, but got the lead and then extended. But the first half was just it wasn't boring footy, but it wasn't the most exciting game of all time. But lucky we put it on for 25 to 30 minutes.
Yeah, that first quarter was diabolical. I was sitting there with Jake, going, "Oh man, this is bad. Oh man, this is bad. What's going? This is bad." I'm having a quick look back at the stats for quarter time. I think we managed to get the clearances by one or something, but everything, tackles by one as well. But everything was against us at quarter time, and I was sitting there like, this is karma. We celebrated too much last week. This is what happens. And I was thankful to see that change in the second and third quarter more predominantly. But that when it kind of started turning at the fourth, I was like, oh no, please don't be just a repeat of last week. Don't let us be on the receiving end. So I was very thankful we got over the line. Otherwise, I'm just thankful to have nails this week, to be honest.
I feel like our games against the Roos in general are just shockers. I can't remember the last time. And I mean, I don't know if it talks to the position on the ladder and where both teams have sort of sat, but my gosh, have we had some ordinary games against the Roos. I want to say even in like the past 10 years, it's been really, really hard to watch. And I actually did quite enjoy the third quarter, to be fair, and I thought onwards and upwards from here. I was at the game and funnily enough, did have to leave at three-quarter time with my son who's 5 and can't really survive a whole game. But we got on the train and we're getting the live updates. And, I was panic stations thinking, oh, my gosh, I don't think I've got any regrets about leaving at three-quarter time this week. But thankfully they got it done. And, obviously that kick on the siren or after the siren with that 50-metre penalty ended up being the only goal of that quarter. So I think, my son was happy because we'd made a deal that every time we kick a goal, he could have a lolly. So, he definitely didn't miss much in the last quarter either. But that third quarter was a bit, what have I promised here? But moving on, we'll look at the ins and outs that I've got up here. I actually think Richmond have a few handy ins there, but we'll touch on that a little bit later. We've obviously got Filippo returning, which fingers crossed. I think it was really smart that we played him in the VFL first. He got through that game, had quite a solid, good game, 20-odd touches and a goal. So that's really impressive by him. Really looking forward to seeing him run back out. And then Darcy Wilson, he had a really good game as well. I think he had 30-odd touches, something like that. And then we've got Liam Henry, who's probably maybe the most surprising of the three, but a welcome inclusion in my opinion anyway. And then the outs, unfortunately, we lose Mitch Owens for the season now through injury, which is a big loss. But but if you're going to get injured, now's probably the best time. Then we're losing Burns to injury as well, and we've omitted Hasty, which is interesting. So I'll get your take on the ins and outs there. What are your thoughts?
Look, I guess I'll jump in. I'm personally not that surprised. Obviously, Mitch, as we know, was injured. That was so frustrating just watching him. We finally broke in forward in the fourth. Oh, it might have been late third quarter or something. And he just, I see him. He's not the option that gets taken, and then just pulls up. And I'm like, oh, you're kidding. But yeah, Burns. Look, I mean, there was a bit said about that shot. A dribbler 10 meters out that hits the post isn't great. And yeah, look, as much as I like Hasty in some regards, I think he showed a lot of promise early on in his career. I'm not that surprised that he's out of the side, considering his role, right? Like, he's meant to be that relief off half back, kind of generally getting a little bit of free ball and not too much pressure on him. He's fairly consistently been getting below 10 disposals, and that's with reasonable time on ground. For me, it just kind of becomes a situation of where towards the end of the year, we've got players that are playing well in the twos. Where do we fit him in? He's probably one of the few that kind of hasn't been pulling his end. And I just don't feel I've seen enough development so far this year to solidify that role.
Yeah, no, it sort of makes sense. He showed flashes, like there was a couple of games, can't remember which game it was, but he did a really nice spin move into a shot at goal. I don't think he scored from that, but it's those sort of things you see that gives you hope when a young player sort of is showing that he's got something in him. Like, you know, he's got not only the ability, but he's got I suppose he's thinking about that as an option in game. So he's got a decent IQ that he's thinking about pulling off a spin move. But yeah, I feel like you said, he's just not getting enough of it in that role. As much as I would like to see them stick with him, because, you know, it's at this time of the year where we've kind of played the younger players regardless. Yeah, I'm not convinced on Henry. Is probably the only reason why. I'm happy to give him the games in terms of form, because he's had such an interrupted year. But yeah, I feel like there's players that are in line before him form-wise. Positionally, I suppose Burns went out and Burns was playing forward last week, so it makes a bit of sense in that regard. I'm actually surprised in terms of Richmond. You said, Alana, they've got some good ins. I'm surprised they brought Lynch back in. I feel like it's not worth him playing. I feel like he's just a completely negative player now. The game where he got suspended, I don't know if it ended up being like this, but it's three-quarter time. He had like no disposals, 5 free kicks against, something ridiculous like that. So it's just not worth dropping a guy like Thomas Sims, who's a key forward. But yeah, anyway, it's not Tigers TV, so I won't talk about them anymore.
No, well, I was going to touch on their ins actually, but before we do, I think, you know, Hasty's sort of been the talking point, and Jan brought up something interesting, because I just don't know that a like-for-like replacement has come in, but does Wilson potentially go in and play that halfback sort of role? I think he's played it a little bit in the past. He obviously hasn't had the season we'd hoped for, a bit of second-year blues, but hasn't really owned a spot either. So do you think this is a chance for him? I actually think Clark's come a long way. I've really liked him off halfback, but we can touch on that a little bit more later. But where do you see Wilson coming in? Like, does he come in and fill the void of Hasty, or what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm not sure if anybody saw the results from the Zebs last week, but just double checking them now. I'm pretty sure, yeah, Wilson got 37 disposals, I believe 7 inside 50s. I'd have to double check his rebound 50s, but 14 clearances with that as well. It's a dominant performance.
Massive game.
And it's kind of one of those ones where we've got people in the guts right now that could play halfback. Like we've got Naz that will float back. We've got potentially Sinclair that spent a moment in there towards the end of last week as well. So I think we have people that can always go to that halfback flank role, and flexibility is always good as well. So it'd be good to give Darcy an opportunity in that role, but I'd also like to see him get that opportunity in the guts too. So if we need Naz to help us get out of the back line, it's just more flexibility. I think he's the main person. That being said, I wouldn't mind seeing Pooh given a shot. He sometimes gets a little bit lost in the forward line. It's obviously not been his year. So maybe a little bit of movement out of half back, get his hands on the ball wouldn't be a bad thing either.
Yeah, I think speaks to what you were saying about having the options around the ground of guys that can fill the space. Like I feel like Stocker will definitely go back there, but Windy's played half back before as well. So we've got the options. Bradley Hill can swing half back if we need him to. So we've got the flexibility to run multiple guys through the midfield. Now, obviously, you're not going to run, 7, 8, 9 guys through the midfield during a game, especially with getting decent minutes, just because that's not good for continuity. But if we need to, we can swing those guys through. There's a lot of, even on the half forward line, we've got Hugo Garcia listed there as well. He'll run through the middle, or he can run through the middle. Max Hall has been impressive running through there. Zach Jones. So there's a lot of moving parts, I think, in our side at the moment. Guys that can play half forward, midfield, half back sort of thing. So it gives us a lot of options if the game's not going our way, or if we want to change things up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you raised good points, and we definitely do have some options to rotate at least. I've changed my mind regarding talking Richmond. We'll just discuss them in the Oppo view, and I'll move on and talk about the midfield, because I feel like we're sort of bringing in that discussion anyway. So I'll just shrink this down so we can see the full lineup. But yeah, I guess if we move on to the midfield, if there's any sort of standout performers, I've really liked Hugh Boxall still. I think he's worth persevering with for the rest of the season, and I personally just love Garcia. I think even if he doesn't get the ball as much as I'd like, I just find every time he does, he's really clever. He likes to find space. He doesn't just blaze away, and I reckon he's really improved that, because when he first started, that was probably my main frustration with him, that he used to just get the ball on the boot and not really pay much attention to where it was going, which I still find that's probably McRae's biggest negative on him, is sometimes he just bangs it quickly on the boot. But McRae does a lot of good other things too, so, credit where it's due. He's in and under and handballs out and that kind of thing are really good. But, I really love what Garcia's brought to the team. Is there anyone else you sort of thought has stood out, or maybe you agree? What's your take on the midfield been? What did you sort of take away from the Roos game and how we went against their midfield, which is probably one of their strengths, I guess. They've got a few quality players in there.
Yeah, I think Marshall needed to have a good game. Oh, sorry, you go.
No, my apologies. Oh no, you jump in. I'll double check things. My apologies.
Okay. We're both being too nice to each other.
Yeah,
I think Marshall needed to have a big game, considering Sherry wasn't playing, and they dropped Maley, so they didn't have a second ruck, because I'm not calling Darling a second ruck, and he did. And I think he proves that he's got the class to play one ruck. Now, a lot of people will say, pay Naz, not DeConing. I don't think it quite works that way. So I think that if we can live in a world where we find the right balance between a potential Marshall and DeConing ruck duo, we'll see, we'll have great success in the midfield, because they're both different kind of rucks as well. DeConing's more athletic, whereas Rowan's a bigger body, I guess. He's still good on the ground, considering he's not the most... I was going to say he's not the most agile, but he stepped around a North player last week from memory. He's been sort of working into the year, which is nice, considering he was obviously injured and carrying injury early on. So to work into the year has been pretty good. And the other thing was Naz, obviously, like, ridiculous player. His efficiency was a little bit down, and people probably get worried about that. But that's just what happens when you play inside midfield more often. Your disposal is more likely to be turned over or not hit a target when you're in close. So, yeah, overall, it was a good performance. I thought we did quite well. I don't know the centre clearance numbers, but I felt like we won more often than not. At least in the first 10 minutes of the game, it felt like we were like 3-4 to 1. So our clearance game has improved throughout the season as well.
Yeah, bang on. I think those numbers are right. I'd have to pull it all up, but I think you're pretty much on the money there, mate. Otherwise, it's similar stories on me. I won't stick too much on Naz. You're right in terms of how just turnovers work, but in terms of that sort of level below Naz, the non-best players in the league, like we did all right, but honestly, I'm pretty not happy with some of their results. Like, obviously, Captain Steele wasn't playing as much, but we didn't see much more out of Jack McRae getting that additional responsibility. Whereas I think a lot of people have said maybe they can't work together. I'm starting to wonder if we just don't have that role set up correctly. Because other people that have burst away from stoppage, they're using those opportunities to win the ball. Maybe they lose it, as much as kind of the other side in some regards, but it's not this kind of lockdown slug. It's kind of quick breakaway. You've either won it or you've either lost it situation. So there's elements of defensive improvement that I'd like to see. I don't think we had a particularly large amount of tackles from our midfield group. I think even though Marcus Windhager's probably been one of the more consistent midfielders this year, 20-odd disposals on, not amazing, but not terrible efficiency. We kind of need that difference between his best and kind of an average game to just close up a bit. And I think last week was a really good opportunity to kind of follow Naz as the next best midfielder, but to see Clark, Sinclair, McRae and Marshall all get more disposals, and some of it use better as well. It's a little bit frustrating. So I'm hoping with this week he gets that opportunity to kind of take his stamp on the match and show people he's just as potentially good as Naz come a couple of years down the track.
Yeah, an interesting take, Ree McRae, because I feel like his first 6 games, he was just like a bull out of a gate. Like, he was incredible. He was just what we needed and slotted straight into the team and was almost that missing piece. But I don't know if we've just got used to him in a way, or I think he's sort of tapered off a little bit. And he's just not as noticeable now. Like, he's sort of just, I don't know, you just don't notice his possessions as much. And if anything, the ones I do notice, I'm like, oh, you just banged it straight to the opposition without even looking. Like, it just frustrates me. But like I said before, he does do good things too. But I just feel like when he first came in those first 6 weeks, he was really nailing his disposals and really hitting up players and that kind of thing. So that's probably been a negative, maybe the second half of the year for him. Did want to touch on Steele. He plays his 200th this week, which is a really amazing achievement, and I think he's been a great skipper myself. Obviously, he's had his ups and downs this year, but overall, really like what he's brought to the club and really glad he's ours. So big congrats to Steele. Was very surprised to see him line up as a sub. Guarantee that won't be the case this week ahead of his 200th. But what was your take when you saw that he was running around with a sub sort of vest on? Because it definitely got me. I was not expecting that.
Yeah, it took me by surprise. Jake told me a couple of minutes before the bounce or before they ran out. I think that's when we saw it, and I was like, oh, he looks like he's, maybe had an injury that we haven't announced throughout the year. There's a big match coming up next week. I could see why you just ask him to do less this week so he's ready for his big match and we can celebrate it a bit more thoroughly. It was a little bit surprising at first, but after kind of 30 or so seconds to think about it, I was like, oh, probably not the worst thing.
yeah, like, you see other teams doing it with their not just older players, but more injured players who take the brunt of it during the season. So, I mean, yeah, like you said, it kind of takes us by surprise when you see the captain named sub, but at the same time, you can understand it. One, it gives a little more, uh, it puts a little more weight on the younger players' shoulders, see if they can carry that midfield like we've been wanting to see, but
Mhm.
haven't had the opportunity because Steele and McRae are getting still high time on ground, which McRae only had 66%, which was the second lowest out of anyone not subbed in or out of our team. But yeah, like, Collingwood do it with Pendlebury side bottom. Well, maybe not side bottom, but they've done it with Pendlebury. Nat Fyfe, who's, a very injured sort of player in the last few years. He's been subbed most of the time when he's come back into the side. So it's not uncommon.
Yeah, it was a funny one because I sort of agree. Like, while I was surprised, I was sort of like, oh yeah, a bit of a glimpse at the future, see how the midfield goes, and we can always bring him in earlier if we need to. And there was a point, I think in the second quarter, it might have been, where I was like, all right, get Steely on. What are we doing? But yeah, I think personally, I like resting him forward. I actually quite like what he's done when he's played forward. He's managed to hit the scoreboard, and I like his physicality down there as well. It was quite interesting to see Burns push forward, and obviously he's injured, and that kick he missed right in front of goal, that was right in front of me, and I was already up cheering the goal because it was such a gimme, and I still don't know how that happened. And then watched Owens do his hammy, not far from where I was either, and like it was just really unfortunate because everyone around me, like I didn't actually see it, but I had comments all around me like, "Oh, Owens has just done his hammy," and then I look over and you could tell that was him done. So disappointing because I think we touched on he's sort of really got it together the last few weeks. So unfortunate, but at least it's probably the time. So if you're going to do an injury, do it 3 weeks out of the season finishing when we're not playing finals. So on that, I'll just discuss the rest of the forward setup. I feel like we tried to mix it up a little bit with Burns in there, so it'll be interesting to see how we go about it this week. I think Filippo probably predominantly plays forward, but I didn't mind your suggestion, Woody, about having him in the back line and maybe getting just a few cheap touches to get him back into it. But I just think he'll be itching at the bit to get that footy, so really looking forward to seeing how he goes. What have you sort of thought about the forward line, how we went on the weekend? Obviously, we're still missing some really easy shots, but what are your sort of key takeaways?
Yeah,
I mean,
like, you go this time. You go this time.
okay. I was gonna say, this is one of the first weeks where I've turned around and I'm like, hey, we got it to the forward line for the first time in a while, and like we weren't particularly effective, don't get me wrong, but we got it inside 50 54 times. And if we're doing that every week, we're about 20 odd percent below the pack. That'd catch us up over halfway of that, so it'd get us about 12 or so percent on the way back. And we're not at the very best. We're not expecting 60 plus, 65 odd inside 50s a match. But if we can stick around that 55 mark, repel more than we get, and we can win more games than we lose. Like inside 50s, time in possession, and like position on the field. If you can kind of even just position on the field equity and time in possession, you can kind of control those two parts of the game. I mean, all these other numbers just kind of explain those two things for me. So, yeah, I liked what we did in a lot of regards. Didn't do it effectively, but yeah, there's patches of it. That third quarter, end of the second, it looked good, but could always improve.
Yeah, and like, I thought this guy did a really good job of competing. I'd like to see him play the rest of the season out. I thought Max Heath easily could have kicked 5, 100%. If he was any smaller and knew how to kick on the run, he would have kicked one. I think it was I can't remember which quarter it was. It might have been the second, where he got it by himself for like 40 meters out from goal, roughly, and just put it out in the full. like any other guy, that's a goal, but it's a ruckman / full forward. It's just not his game, which is fine. It's all right.
Is that the Naz kick?
But he competed. Sorry.
Yeah, it was the Naz kick.
Mm.
It was that Windy.
Oh, it was
It was
too.
the hand pass from Windy and Naz run against Hanson Jr. And also, quick moment, he took 3 bounces on Hanson Jr. chasing him. Hanson Jr. is not a slow boy. That's impressive, as.
And he just got subbed on at the same time. He was fresh, fully fresh.
True.
Yeah, Moose, he had a couple of opportunities that I thought he could have taken a little bit better, but it's his third game. I think it was his third game. So, you don't get mad at a young guy like that who hasn't had much footy experience. But yeah, like he competed well. He seemed to outbody a lot of the North bigs. I don't remember him getting outbodied. Maybe he got beaten, but he didn't get pushed aside in the ruck as well, which is good to see. So, yeah, hoping he holds his spot in the forward line, considering Machito's gone down. So it's a tall forward. Obviously, they're not quite like for like, but yeah, he looked more confident with the ball in hand and just around the ground compared to his first couple of games. Just quickly, though, I did want to address, I didn't say it with Marshall, but we've got to stop throwing a boot at it every single time it goes up in the ruck. I feel like that's just a bit dangerous. Like, it works sometimes, but he was really close. I can't remember if Heath did it, but Marshall was really close to kicking someone a few times. I was just like, there's a time and a place, and it might not be as often as he's doing it.
I think just quickly as well, you mentioned something earlier that I forgot to jump in on, but there's a good chance that the ruck rules get changed next year, so that kind of go in, hold your man, get a hand up and tap it. It's unlikely that that's going to be the way that they're allowed to do things going forward. You're going to have to probably do the old school leap again. So
yeah,
I don't mind Marshall being the backup, but he's never been much of a leaper. So if that does change, I think he's a great backup, right? He'd be one of the best. He'd be the best in the league. But if that change is going to come in, I think it does affect him and his ability to do what he does predominantly at the moment. So hopefully TDK with his a bit more leap tap work can take over and give Marshall that chop out that he needs.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That makes me want TDK even more if that's true. The only positive I see with that is I feel like Marshall, he always seems to be the one that gives away the free kicks when he is physical with the other ruck, whereas the other ruckman seems to be able to do whatever he wants to Marshall and it's fair game, play on. Whenever Marshall does it, it's free kick against, does my head in. So I'm thinking maybe that's why he's just stuck the boot up, because he's like, otherwise I'm just going to give a free kick away, so I'll just bang it on the boot and you can't stop me. But it was
good
that
way
was
to
also
up your disposal numbers.
yeah. But I agree. I was getting very sick of him doing that. I'm like, what are you doing, mate? But if it pays off, then it's a different story. I guess we'll move on to the back line now. I am glad that you did touch on Heath because I was going to bring that up. So you've done that for me. So we'll move on to the back line. I did bring up earlier, I've really liked Clark playing off the halfback. I think it's his position. I like him better there than in the midfield. I think it really suits him. And even the way he sees the game, I think sometimes he sees it in slow motion, but at the same time, he gets caught holding the ball more than most as well. So he's a funny player, Clark, but I just think, yeah, the way he sees the game, I like him better as a backman. But, yeah, not sure if you agree on that or not. So I guess I'll start there with your take on Clark and where you see his best position.
I might have to give this one off to you, Ollie, first. I got to think about this a bit.
All right. Yeah, I think I like it at the moment because it frees up another midfield spot for someone to prove themselves. And they've got, I don't know, they've got options at halfback, right? Like we were talking about earlier. And I think Clark has that poise that a lot of the younger guys don't quite have yet. His efficiency's been down, at least in the last few weeks, playing midfield. But even when he gets the ball sort of behind the contest. So, yeah, look, I'm not 100% convinced that I'd want him there going forward. But at the moment, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, Clark's an interesting one for me. Has been for a while. I don't think it's the case this year, but there was a year a little while back where he was essentially going at like effective disposal, like just regular, like one score involvement, one regular disposal, one turnover. It was like split into thirds. And ever since that year, I've kind of been a bit iffy on Clark, and he's never fully sold me since. So it was interesting. We went from chatting to Rowan Marshall to Hunter Clark, because they're the two that give away the most free kicks against on our side. And for me, like, while you mentioned Clark gets holding the ball, I've also noticed that recently he's been diving in on players on the ground and giving just head high turnover free against, and they're just useless. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm all for the man to come in, shore up a secondary tackle sort of situation, lock the ball in. But I've seen it happen for the last month. It's happened every week, and it's just, there's moments where I look at Clark and I'm like, you're just the most like agile and coordinated person in our team. And then other moments where I'm going, you're the least agile and most uncoordinated person in our team. And I think that chasm for him has never fully closed. I think we were talking about it with Marcus Windhager a second ago. And, whether that's continuity, roles, whatever it might be, like the injuries, all that, I've just never fully been sold on him. So I'd be happy to keep Hunter as a backup going forward. He's definitely AFL level in a lot of regards, but to be a starting halfback flank, I'd be looking at upgrading that role. Honestly, really wish we'd taken that first or early second that we got offered a couple of years back. But at the same time, I love him, and some of his brilliant moments are just other people. They just don't replicate it on the team. So he's a tough one for me. He's a tough one.
Yeah. And like for the rest of the defense, just quickly on this week, I thought our small defenders did a great job. No impact from Curtis, Harvey, Constanti. I know Banch got subbed off. So all their small guys didn't do anything. Hanson Jr. didn't really do a lot when he came on. Their score involvements, not scoring involvements, their actual scores came from Larky, Zerha, and Darling. So they're key forwards. And then the rest were midfielders. So Wardlaw, LDU, McKercher, Sheasel. They were the goal kickers. So I thought the defense, all in all, did a good job, considering if half of your goals are from mids, you've probably done a good job. And then I thought that we forced North into making a lot of tough set shots. Larky outside 50 on the quarter time siren. It's a tough shot to make. Zerha got a lot of shots on the boundary line. So I think we made it difficult. They still scored, so they got a lot of ball, which is probably a negative. But I think from, what I saw from sitting at the game, because, you don't always see things the same perspective compared to on TV. And I haven't had the chance to rewatch the game, but it felt like we really forced them into making tough set shots.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think overall they had a fairly solid game. I've sort of had mixed reviews throughout the week on where Stocker's at, so wanted to touch on that quickly. I think I've mentioned it maybe last week or the week before. He had a bit of a quiet one. Maybe it was against Melbourne. But I thought he was really solid against Sydney, so it's not like he's been out of form for that long, and I still thought he was okay. And the thing with Stocker is he's never going to be like a ball magnet and get, your 20-odd touches. I still thought he did his job, but was curious to see if I was on my own there and get your thoughts on his game and maybe his last couple of weeks.
I didn't mind his game. I don't think he did much, to be honest. I'm trying to double check his stats. I didn't mind it. I think he might have had one transition moment from memory where I was a little bit upset with his efforts, but I mean, if I'm upset once in a game, like, I'm not really going to hold that against you. So yeah, it's from memory he did all right, but then I saw likewise others suggesting that he had a terrible match, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe others saw things that I didn't see. So yeah, I'm not sure on that regard. I haven't. I didn't think he was too bad.
I think for Stocker, it's because of the position he plays, it's quite matchup based rather than anything else. Some weeks he'll get a good matchup, some weeks he'll be on the back foot. But you know what you're going to get, which is a positive for Stocker. I really like the sort of fight that he brings every week. You know he's going to go hard for a tackle. You know he's going to fly for a contested mark if he needs to. He'll go back with the flight. He'll do all the little things that, each team needs one player, at least one player, but someone who stands out for doing those little things. And I think Stocker's been that guy for us recently.
Yeah, so I feel like we are pretty much on the same page with that. I did quickly just want to mention that I actually quite enjoyed watching Taru match up on Darling at times. It was the matchup that I wanted to see, and I thought he really held his own considering the experience of Darling. And obviously Darling's heading towards the end of his career now, but I thought that he would have learnt a lot from that matchup, and he might not be blowing us away as much as he was those sort of first couple of games he played, but really happy to keep persisting. I just think he's got something about him that excites me. I think it excites everyone. You can just tell. Even the commentators seem to be able to see into the future with him. I think we've got one there. But yeah, what did you sort of think? Have you liked the way Taru's progressed, or what have you thought about his? Oh, I guess it's been a month now of footy he's strung together, probably even more.
Yeah, a bit more than that. I think 6 games, maybe 6 or 7 games. But he sort of, I think I've spoken about it before. With time, he'll fly for marks instead of just trying to punch it, and he'll take contested marks. And that's a confidence thing and an experience thing. So, the more senior guys will get around him. And whilst, there's a lot of times where spoil is the right option, there's been a few, probably 2 most weeks that I've gone, maybe could have marked that, but that's all right. I think he's just an exciting prospect at the minute. We don't go early on anyone because we know how that goes. When we go early on a high draft pick. So, yeah, I think we just let him do what he's doing and get excited when he does something cool. And other than that, just, let him go about his business and don't make him a crazy cult hero too early. I think that's a big thing because he's going to be a cult hero. I know that for sure if he hangs around. So don't put that pressure on him too early.
Yeah, definitely agree. I like him in a lot of ways. He reminds me of the former person in his jumper. Hopefully a fair bit better. But yeah, I mean, I like him a lot. He got 6 spoils. I might mention Caminiti as well in this moment. Some people haven't really warmed into him yet as a defender, but I mean, 12 spoils on the weekend. If we're sitting there going, what Taru could do if he just started clunking them, Caminiti's another one. So, yeah, I think we've got a lot developing there. I think it really comes down to time, effort, and making it all glue. At this point, they're a good little trio, and I'd want to see them finish the year out together.
Yeah, I think we're all definitely on the same page with that one. Before I do move on and get stuck into Richmond, which, to be honest, I don't think we need to talk about them too long, I've got my question of the week. After the Melbourne game, I think a few of us were sort of saying how that's one of the best wins we've seen. And it got me thinking, what is the best win that you've seen live? I know we touched on our best win of the season, but I want your best win that you've seen ever live. But you have to have been there at the game.
Oh, man.
Let's throw to the chat first. Chat, really? you gotta have some good ones here because I'm probably been to half of these games and forgot them.
Straight off the top, I've got Geelong 2023. round 22 or 23, second last game of the year, because that was when we were almost locked into finals. So that was big. Carlton last year was big just because, no one wants to see Carlton in the finals. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Oh, there's so many. The one that first came to mind, surprisingly, was 2016 against round 23 against the Lions, where Rewalt kicked 9. I remember going to that match and thinking, shit, this could be Rui's last. Like, we don't know. Like, he hasn't said anything, so hopefully he just keeps going. But, like, we don't know. And then he comes out and just dominates. And I was like, oh, please don't leave. Like, and I don't know. There's I think it was last match of the year again against Essendon. I think it was 2004.
8?
9, 8,
I think it
8
was
or
8.
9.
Where
And yeah, we won by
smashed
like
them.
164 or something.
It was
And I just
insane.
remember like going nuts. And then
We got top 4 off that.
yeah, we got top 4. We jumped in, got a second chance, and I remember just going off my nuts. Like I was jumping on chairs and just going nuts. I was like 16 or something. And like I think some old woman like from Essendon just hated that I was having fun and enjoying myself. And she's like, well, you've got to go play bloody the Cats next week. And I was like, well, that either means we get one game away from the grand final or we get another week because we're in the top 4, baby. Enjoy next year. Like, I think that was the most like rude I'd ever been to an adult at that point in my life. But like, yeah, I don't know. Like, there's been a lot of good ones, man. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, I hadn't thought about that game in a long time. Thanks for that.
It sucks for me because I'm of an age where we were really good when I was too young to go and remember, and now we've been okay. So I haven't really, in between that time, there's not a lot of good. So I'm kind of clutching at straws.
No, I get you, bro.
Yeah, that's unfortunate for you. We've had such a little bad era there. I feel right at the wrong time for you.
Yeah.
I've got a few. I do agree with Jan. That game in 2009 against Geelong has to get a mention because that was just next level.
I wasn't at that game. I got to watch it. Like I was working behind a bar as a little 16-year-old, plunging glasses. Wasn't even allowed to serve people and just watching TV. That was great. That was good night.
Because there's been a few against Brisbane. I personally really enjoyed the last game in 2005 when Milne kicked 11. He was my favourite player, so that was pretty special. And then Troy Swartz kicking the winner must have been 2004. That was insane. I have not heard. I was screaming my lungs out when he kicked that, and I could not even hear myself. The noise was just out of this world. And then probably have to say the prelim to get us into the 2009 grand final. That was just an amazing feeling. Probably not the greatest game, but Rewalt's little kick that got us there. Yeah, I've got too many to name. Even the qualifying against Geelong was great when was it Mooney who just kept saying to them, "You just cost us the game. You just cost us the game."
That was great.
That was like the best moment ever.
That was great.
So yeah, that put us on like the better side of the draw, like to make the grand final. So that was a pretty epic win too. So sorry, I've just named about 5 games there.
Good games.
Definitely showing my younger age with this one. I don't know if you guys will remember, but 2018 we played Gold Coast on the Gold Coast, in the Gold Coast, and we kicked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 last quarter goals, and Gresham kicked the sealer from the boundary.
Yeah.
Because I remember specifically that day, I had people over for my birthday, I think. So I'm like, at this age, I'm like, 14 years old, 13 years old or something like that. and my whole family's there, and I'm like, I don't care about you and talking about my birthday. I'm watching the Saints, and then Gresham kicked a goal, and I went ballistic. So I remember that one. That sticks out, but it's not as good because I wasn't there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I was out somewhere watching that.
I
Yeah.
remember seeing it. I can't remember what happened.
Yeah.
That was in that era of footy where I really wanted to watch, but it was tough going.
Yeah,
tough going.
the Richo era. Yeah.
Yeah. And even the Waters era, man, that was oof.
That was worse. I wouldn't even call that an era.
Oh gosh, yeah. No.
I mean, when you destroy a club, that's pretty close to an era, isn't it?
Well, a good way to segue into Richmond. There was a game in 2007, and I reckon Jake randomly brought it up a few weeks ago, where Richo kicked 7 goals and Richo kicked 6 and Milne kicked 7. I think it was Jack Rewalt's. Must have been one of his first games, and he had the kick after the siren to win it, but he was pretty far out. And we ended up winning it. And I actually played girls footy at the time. And so I'd gone with a few mates to watch that game, and a few of them a lot of them weren't Saints supporters, and they always used to say like, "Oh, why is Milne your favourite?" And then I was just like, right there. So that was nice. So that was another good one to go to. I used to go all the time, so yeah, got my share, I guess. But yeah, speaking of Richmond, they're at a different phase now. Although I can't remember what they were like back then. From memory, I can't remember if they were any good. But
do you remember Ninthman? I
around.
remember Ninthman well.
Yeah, they probably were about ninth.
Yeah.
But if we take a look at their lineup, they do have some handy ins, as we've touched on. They're bringing Taranto back, Broad, and who was the other one? Lynch, which, yeah, well, maybe we'll just dismiss Lynch. But obviously Taranto and Broad, I think, are quite handy. In terms of the rest of the lineup, very young, and then they've got a handful of experienced players sort of leading the way, I suppose. And I feel like they've improved quite a bit from when we played them at the start of the year and beat them by 85 points, I think it was. So I'm expecting a little bit more of a competitive game, even though they did stick with us for a half last time around, and then we just completely blitzed it in the second half. But yeah, I would actually be worried about this game if we were playing like trying to play finals, because I would say it would be a typical danger game for the Saints. So I don't think I can just say it's an easy 4-point win, and I hope we go about it as if it's not, because I think in theory we should be winning comfortably, but I think they've been a little bit more competitive than their ladder position suggests. So yeah, interested to get your thoughts on how they're lining up, and if you agree or if you think I'm crazy and we're getting this one done easy.
Yeah, look, just quickly, it's on Richmond. It kind of ties in with what we were just talking about, but 2017 when they won the flag and we're up 92-10 at halftime. That's probably one of the best games I've been to.
Yeah, actually, I forgot about that game. Let's see.
If you're up 104-18 at some stage against the eventual premiers, that's a pretty good game. Anyway, look, I feel like you can write off Tom Lynch, like I said before. So someone's going to take him, and although saying that, he's probably going to kick 12 goals now. But I quite like Seth Campbell. I think he's been quite good this year. Decent small forward. He looks quite dangerous around the ball. So him and Maurice Rioli have had, Rioli's come back from injury, but has been really solid since coming back into the side. So it's probably those two out of everyone. I feel like we match up quite well in the midfield. But yeah, that's probably the extent of it for mine.
Yeah, this one's I reckon you're right. I reckon this is a little bit of a danger game, in the sense that, look, I don't know how much I really trust Tom Lynch or Noah Bolter to kick a bunch of goals, but they might take out a couple of our key defenders. You never know. But yeah, like everything else you've said is right. Their half forwards have been quite good. Reece Mansell, Seb Campbell, Maurice Rioli, even Jack Ross, Trezise when he gets down there. But yeah, I also think depends. Like if we were just running, and you know, it's Steely's game. But if we were to run Steele, Windy, and McRae consistently, I'm not sure how I'd love it against who they have. I think they're very similar players in some regards. I do think our players are better, but they're similar. So I don't think we'd get a ton of advantage there. And then somebody like Camden McIntosh coming into lockdown, whoever actually starts to get off the leash from that group would be a bit annoying too. So a little bit of a danger game here. Their defence, all right. It's got a lot of their stalwarts from the premiership years still. And then it kind of comes down to their super youngsters and kind of how they do. Is Harry Armstrong going to be able to help? Is Taj Houghton? Those sort of guys. So, yeah, I think we get it done, but I'm a little bit worried about it.
Same page. All right. So if we are getting it done, how are we getting it done? What's the key to winning? And I think we're all going to say that we are winning. So at the same time, I'll get you to do your margin as well. So how are we winning and how much are we winning by?
Like, I feel like last week against North Melbourne, I spoke before, like on Teams, about using the middle like we did against Melbourne in the last quarter. And I don't feel like we sort of went back to what worked, or we tried and North Melbourne shut it down. They're a good corridor team. I'm not sure if that's defensively as well, but offensively they are. I feel like they forced us into playing their game a little bit. They controlled the ball quite well, especially in the first half. Their mark stat was ridiculously high at one point. I don't know what it ended up being, but I remember seeing the stats come up and go, like, that's just a clear indication of them controlling the ball, and that's how they were scoring more so. So I feel like we need to try and force Richmond more into our brand and put them on the back foot early. They're a young side. They're obviously not without heart. A lot of people predicted that they would win maybe one game if they were lucky this year. They've won 5. So that's massive in itself. So it'll be tough to, take the heart out of the team. But I think if we control the ball in our way, however they decide to do it this week, move the ball, ball movement wise. But yeah, I think we need to make sure we're not forced into playing Richmond's brand of footy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely agree. Look, in terms of winning it, I mentioned kind of what I think is most important before. I think time in possession and field equity, if you can kind of own those two more advanced, or time in possession is not so advanced, but field equity certainly is. And kind of essentially, if you can just be closer to goal and have the ball more, you'll win. 99% of the time, if you can tick off those two things, you will win. So realistically, just have the ball more, get it inside 50. And like we did that last week. So like just do that again. Stop letting the opposition so easily get the ball and easily use the ball. A big issue of ours this year is that we've just put nowhere near enough pressure on the opposition, particularly from the forward half. So I'd like to see a lot more done there. There's a few players that do all right, but it's few and far between as well. So forward half pressure, realistically setting up a good wall, defensive web, whatever you might want to do. Repeat entries. That's going to win you 99.9% matches.
Nice. Yeah, I think it's going to be another scrappy game, to be honest. I don't think it's going to be pretty, but I think we just need to make the most of our opportunities when we get them and stop stooping to our opponent's level. And I'm hoping that's what we're doing, and that's not actually our level. Some of our plays have just been so frustrating because we show glimpses of getting it together, and then we'll go and completely stuff the last kick or even the last kick at goal where it's just a gimme goal and we just screw it up. So I just want to clean that up, and we clean that up, I think we'll get enough entries to win us the game. Big shout out to Higgins too. It's his 100th for the Saints. So on that, I think it's going to be a close one, but maybe Higgins can bob up in Higgins fashion and kick the last couple and win us the game against his old side. That'd be a nice little way to finish that off. So I'm going to say a 10-point win in another ugly sort of game. But that's my tip.
I reckon we win by 5 goals, 5 to 6 goals, and I reckon Max Heath kicks a bag.
Nice.
That's a good call. I reckon, Max will be hard to stop. Both Maxes, Heath and Hall. I would say both of them end up with multiple on the board, and we win by about halfway between the two of you, so about 18 points.
Very nice. I might just finish off with John here, who was Richmond apparently, but I think it's a good take. So I'm always for the fast starts too. I'm sick of these frustratingly slow starts. So I'm with you there, John. On that note, we'll leave it there. It's a bit of a blockbuster game tonight for real. The Hawks versus the Pies. Going to be a bit of a close one, I hope. But this is my last teams for the year. I'm away for the next 2. So thank you, everyone who's tuned in over the season. Despite not always getting the wins on the board, it's been really great. All your comments and your contributions, really, really enjoyed it. So thank you to everyone for tuning in. Thanks as always to Ollie and Woody. Thanks for joining us again. It's always a really good discussion, and I've had a ball. So thank you both. Enjoy tonight's game. Enjoy the weekend. It's not a home game. It's at the G. So get down if you can, support the boys. And Steely and his 200th, I think it's a good one to get down to if you can. So as always, get behind the boys, cheer loud and proud, and go Saints.
Go Saints.
Go Saints.